झूम 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 गाऊं मैं एरी सखी झूम झूम गाऊं मैं एरी सखी पिया से मिलन की आई बेला सखी झूम झूम गाऊं.
Cycling infrastructure. We need to talk about this for so many reasons, but two in particular. First of all, we're starting to lose it in Ottawa and across the province in general. We'll dig into that. Also because we just came back from Copenhagen, so awesome cycling infrastructure is very front of mind right now. I'm going to try and keep this non-political. Anytime that you start to talk about cyclists and car users in the same sentence, especially when you're talking about sharing the same space, things tend to get a little acrimonious. We will keep the profanity to a minimum and we will try to come up with a solution. I don't think I have one, but let's discuss. So first and foremost, I am not anti-car. Yes, I am pro-cycling, as I am an avid cyclist. But I own an automobile. I've had a car, many different cars over the years. Much like the rest of you, I wish my commute to and from work was much faster. I hate congestion. However, I will not always be a car owner. I need one really for my job. I prefer to rely on public transportation, an efficient transit system, and my bike. So, you know where I'm coming from in this discussion. So what I'm showing here is what is known locally as the MUP, the multi-use path. It's not a bike path. It's not a runner's lane. It's multi-use. So you get everybody out here. And you need to be respectful of walkers, dog walkers, runners, rollerbladers, cyclists, everybody. And they do a good job in the winter of clearing this multi-use path, but they don't clear all of it. Just a portion. Actually, this portion. Another good thing the city does with the multi-use path closer to the river, not this river, but another river, the Ottawa River, is they groom it. They groom it for cross-country skiing, which is amazing. So obviously you can't be riding your bike on it, even a fat bike. So I think overall, Ottawa is trying to do a good job with cycling infrastructure. We have some dedicated bike lanes that are demarcated by some kind of curb infrastructure. We have painted bike lanes. We have chevroned bike lanes. And again, in the winter, the city does a pretty good job clearing those bike lanes, even for the small portion of cyclists who actually use them. But they do get used. Not as much as Copenhagen, but Copenhagen doesn't have the weather that we have. I'm gonna try and do most of the filming heading this way because I have a cross tailwind and it may be a little noisy on the way back. I want to show you what I'm riding on right now. It's not a quote unquote bike lane. What I think the intention of this is an additional lane for emergency vehicles. It's super wide, it's super awesome, and with the width, it gives the cyclist an opportunity to ride further to the right away from the vehicles. Speed limit down here for vehicles is 60, which means most of them go about 80 or 100. So this is the bike lane slash emergency lane. Now there's nothing signaling that this is a bike lane. There's no chevrons, no little cycling icons, no signposts. Seeking refuge in a bus shelter. So the acoustics in here are not great, but it gives me a little break from that chronic headwind. Let's unpack this a little bit. As I mentioned off the top, there's two main reasons why I want to talk about cycling infrastructure. We've just come back from Copenhagen. Copenhagen is known globally as having a very cycling-friendly city. It's almost like there's a social pact between pedestrians, motorists, and cyclists, and they live in harmony, from what I can tell. I'm sure they've had issues in the past, because again, when you group those three categories, pedestrians, motorists, and cyclists together, typically you end up with a bit of a rumble. But it seems to work very well. I don't think it was easy. I think there was a lot of pro-cycling initiatives, a lot of groups pushing for it, and eventually it happened. I'm sure there were issues at the start when they implemented it. I'm sure pedestrians and motorists were upset about the installation of these bike lanes, but it just works, and it seems to work very well. Bikes everywhere in Copenhagen. They have dedicated bike lanes just for bikes, no pedestrians. They have sidewalks for pedestrians, and obviously they have roads for cars. It's a very vibrant downtown core population. I think it's like 1.3 million, so not a huge city, but a vibrant downtown core with a lot of people living in the downtown core. So you get vibrant restaurants, you get a vibrant retail sector, and you get great cycling infrastructure. Now, why is that important? Because here in Ontario, our provincial government, which is conservative, our premier, his name is Doug Ford. You may know his brother. He had some notoriety. His brother, Rob Ford, this chap, was the mayor of Toronto and was caught smoking crack cocaine. And I think he appeared on the Jimmy Kimmel show at one point to explain what he was up to. Anyways, he's since passed, and his brother is now the premier of Ontario and has been for a few years now, for a couple of terms. He will be running again early next year, and I think one of the reasons why we're talking about the removal of cycling infrastructure in Ontario is because he's pandering to his base. He came to power on a wave of populism, and he continues to carry that support. I'm assuming that a lot of his base are not pro-cycling. I don't think he really cares either way, but he's going to go out of his way to appease his base. And if that means removing cycling infrastructure so that they have more access to roads, they don't have to pander to cycling, dedicated cycling lanes, then he's going to do that. The bill is called Bill 212. It hasn't passed yet. Chances are it will pass. And what it means is that whereas municipalities in the past could make decisions on their own on implementing cycling lanes, putting in cycling lanes, removing cycling lanes, now the municipality must make a proposal to the provincial government and explain as to why they can put in a cycling lane if it means removing or impeding traffic. This is a bit of a slippery slope. So why do I think it's a slippery slope? So he wants to remove bike lanes that have already been installed, very expensive bike lanes, millions of dollars. So those are already in place. So he wants to remove those after spending a fortune on installing them, another small fortune removing them. What happens is, I feel once you remove cycling infrastructure, it's very difficult to put it back in place. And again, really, does the municipal government want to fight the provincial government every time they want to put in a bike lane for a very small percentage of the population that actually use the bike lane? Are they going to want to fight that battle? See where I'm coming from? So if I look at it from the perspective of the municipality, what am I giving up if I put in a bike lane, which means reducing a lane for traffic? Well, I'm going to lose parking, right? So there's revenue from that. There's revenue from parking tickets. So a loss of cars is a loss of revenue from one standpoint. Montreal, on the other hand, they've bought into cycling infrastructure improvements. We were there a few months ago checking out Idols. Go back and see a previous vlog on that. Walking around that beautiful city. So they've bought into it 100%. We were up in an area called Saint-Denis. and you can definitely see huge improvements in cycling infrastructure. Now, it's come with a backlash. People complaining about access to their homes, cutting across the bike lanes, loss of parking spaces. But I think these are all just growing pains that eventually you'll come to terms with, and it'll just be second nature. See, the answer, I think, personally, in the downtown core, in an urban setting, isn't more lanes for cars. Less cars. We need to invest more in light rail, in public transportation, in cycling infrastructure. We need less cars in the downtown core, not more roads. Look at Los Angeles. They have like 8-lane highways, jammed all the time. Ottawa has one main highway that goes east-west. It's called the 417 or the Queensway. They've widened that in places, but it hasn't worked. It just creates bottlenecks further down the road. I will keep you updated as to what happens with Bill 212. I have my suspicions on which way it's going to go based on the current political climate globally, but I'll keep you updated. Until then, let's go drinking.
Yeah.